Today on the Coach of Our podcast, we have a very special guest. He played lacrosse in high school, taking those talents to the next level, competing at Curry College in Massachusetts. He spent time coaching at Oberlin College, Bridgeton Academy in Maine, and Milton Academy in Massachusetts. And now, he's the head lacrosse coach at Albertus Magnus University. Today, we welcome Coach Chris Bronander to the Coach of Our podcast. With the world of coaching evolving and the carousel always changing, we're going to sit down with some coaches and we're going to figure out what they coach, how they coach, and most importantly, why they got into this profession. My name is Kason Wilkinson, and I am your host of the Coach's Why podcast.
That was my Coach's Why.
Welcome back to the Coach's Why podcast. We have a very special guest, my first lacrosse coach joining the show. So everybody give a warm welcome to Coach Chris Bronander from Albertus Magnus University. Coach, how you doing today?
Can't complain, living the dream.
Heck yeah, man, heck yeah. And you guys are up in like Connecticut, right in that New England area, correct?
Yeah, we're right in New Haven.
Sweet, okay. So to be honest with you, I like as I said before this, I never worked with lacrosse, never played lacrosse, so there's going to be some questions that I have to that I definitely gonna have. You're gonna have to explain to me a little bit some things, but it's an interesting sport. And where I went to school, we had a lacrosse team, so that was the first time really being around it. So it seems very demographical though, right? It seems like, granted, where I'm from in New Mexico, we don't really have that, but it seems like lacrosse is a big East Coast, big West Coast type of deal. I don't see, maybe it's just me not looking into it, but is that kind of where the sport is kind of mainly at, or do you see it throughout the country?
It's crazy because it started off all on the East Coast, like Maryland, New York, Jersey, Connecticut, right? I mean, they've been unreal for years. Now New Hampshire's starting to get better. Maine's still growing. California is awesome. But it's funny, everything's growing now. Like I was out in Chicago for a recruiting event a couple of years ago, right? I mean, everywhere's starting to pick it up. It's just growing so much, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's a great thing. You guys have a professional lacrosse league too, which is crazy.
That we do.
Yeah. For not being, a huge national sport, at least as you say, it continues to grow. That's got to show signs of hopefully continued support and continued growth, right, as a sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's awesome to finally see like real professionals. I mean, we had the MLL for a while and the NLL. The NLL is still a thing, but the MLL finally is now over to the PLL. So again, it's great to just see the growth of the sport.
Right, good. So kind of before we dive into your coaching journey, right? I always pass it off to you and let you kind of let myself, but also everybody who's listening know a little bit about who you are, where you grew up and when you got involved and when you started, I should say, in the sport of lacrosse.
Yeah, sure. So originally from Glen Ridge, New Jersey, small little town in North Jersey. For my Jersey listeners, it's exit 148.
Hey,
but other than
big
that,
shout out.
Just there you go. But again, just grew up playing the sport. I was a multi-sport kid growing up. I mean, in my town, lacrosse was huge. So North Jersey was awesome. So we had great competition like Montclair. Biggest rival was Mountain Lakes. Played Ridgewood, all these schools. So fell in love with it and honestly started coaching a little bit in high school, just kind of as like a little side gig to help out my youngest brother. He was actually my first championship I won. We won this little indoor league. It was probably when I was maybe 17, 18, senior year in high school. And my youngest brother was maybe 10 or 12, whatever it may be. And so we won the indoor league. So that was awesome. And that was my first little taste about it. Then went to college, enjoyed every aspect of playing collegiate lacrosse as well. And just honestly being around the sport. And after I graduated, I worked a little bit for my dad's company and was kind of going back and forth. Like, is this what I want to do? Is this what I want to do? Blah, blah, blah. But then I got the opportunity to go up to Bridgeton Academy up in Maine and work for a little bit, and honestly just kind of fell in love with it because I've been coaching like high school sports and high school summer programs for a little bit, and then kind of just took off from there. So
hell yeah. So where did you play at the college level?
Yeah, I played at Curry College, a small liberal arts school out in Boston, Massachusetts.
Gotcha. Okay. So as you developed in the sport of lacrosse, when did you realize that you could go to the next level? Was it something that, you went to like a event, like like in baseball, they have like showcases, stuff like that. Was it at a showcase? Was it just like throughout the season? Was it because coaches were coming to talk to you? When did you realize you could go? And then kind of dive it a little bit into like your recruiting process. How did that go? Who was talking to you? And I guess kind of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was the pretty late to the recruiting aspect just because my dad never played lacrosse. And I'm the oldest of two other, three. So
Mm-hmm.
we were kind of late. And I remember starting my junior year, I found out from like one of my high school coaches, like, you got to start doing showcases instead of just doing club ball all the time. So I started
Mm-hmm.
doing that, starting to get recognition. And then I had calls from coaches. And that's kind of when it took off. So again, I wish I was a little not as late to the game, you could say. But again, I was happy with where I ended up. I wouldn't change it for the world. So that's what it was. Because in lacrosse, right, summer lacrosse is huge. You have so many camps that go all up and
Mm-hmm.
down the East Coast, or even going down into Maryland or a little into Virginia sometimes. And so that was pretty eye opening, especially my junior year after I got a lot of love. And then senior year, you probably know where you're going to go, so you don't get as much love. But that makes sense, right?
Yeah, of course. So like when it comes to lacrosse, is there a lot of divisions? And I mean that on the level of like hockey, right? So like St. Cloud University is traditionally a Division II school in most other sports, right? Like wrestling, they were a team that we would face in we'd see them at nationals, right, or whatever. But their hockey team is a Division I. So like, is that similar to lacrosse? Is because is there enough lacrosse teams throughout the country that you have true D1, D2, D3, NAI, JUCO, or is it more of a you do have that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like a perfect example is Johns Hopkins University. They're D1 in lacrosse, but D3 in mostly every other sport.
Right.
So again, I mean, D1 lacrosse is light years away from some D3 divisions, and some of us kind of get that way. We want to coach that certain way as well. But D1 lacrosse is awesome. I mean, watching them go full speed is insane. Like my youngest brother plays D1 lacrosse. He just graduated last year, and it's just insane to watch. But yeah, we have all different levels, all different divisions. There's post grad schools,
Okay.
JUCO, NAIA. One
Yeah.
of my good buddies actually played lacrosse out in Boise, Idaho,
Hmm.
and is now the coach out there and coaches little club ball as well.
Gotcha.
So there's
Yeah, I mean,
so many places.
I watch. Don't get me wrong. Like I don't pay attention to, and it's not anything, right? But it's just like we don't have it on TV all the time, right? And that's just kind of probably just like any other sport, right? Like I pay attention to wrestling throughout the year because that's my sport, but you don't ever see that until you get to the Big Ten championships or nationals. So it's kind of that way. For me with lacrosse or some other sports, is I don't really pay attention until you see it on TV. But I see John Hopkins, North Carolina. Some of these bigger schools when they get to that tournament that's on ESPN, and it does seem pretty intense. And so as I was referencing earlier about like, I guess lacrosse in general. What would you call lacrosse? Right, I know some people probably are not, or they don't pay attention to lacrosse. But how would you explain to the listeners who have never seen lacrosse what is lacrosse and what's the goal point of lacrosse?
Right. So, I mean, it's the fastest sport on 2 feet, really. That's what everyone says. It's a mix of hockey, basketball, and football with just the intensity of it. And it's just, again, it's such a back and forth sport, huge when it comes to momentum. And again, it's just such a fast paced sport. And like I said, it's the fastest sport on 2 feet because, again, you just have 11 guys just going after each other for a good hour,
Yeah,
and it's just insane because I'm not sure if you've seen any clips, right? But some of the hits that you've seen growing up were so gruesome. And you have this long 6 foot pole, right? That's either
yep,
carbon fiber or metal, and you're just beating the hell out of someone,
yeah.
And so everyone's got all these pads, right? Offensive guys will either wear rib guards or just elbows, right? Some guys have special pads as well. But again, it's just a straight dog battle for a good hour.
It is a intense looking sport for sure. Is whenever it comes to like lacrosse, do you see like obviously like hockey, right? Like there's fights and stuff, right? And I know it's kind of warranted, right? That's just kind of for me personally. I used to buy the NHL games just because I could fight because it was fun to do, right?
Right.
But like in lacrosse, like I know like there's some things like some terms, right? The probably only term I know is like checking, right? Like you're checking whatever. Do you see that type of is there fights on the lacrosse field from checking too hard or doing something that is like, because I don't know the rules of lacrosse that much, so like I know that there's some things you can and cannot do when it comes to offensively, defensively. You have to be in a certain area, right? You can't leave a certain area, right? And I know if the ball goes out of bounds behind the keeper, right, the team who touched it last gets it. Is that correct?
So it all depends. Like if I'm on defense, right, and let's say you're on offense, you shot the ball. If you're the closest to the ball as it goes out of bounds, it's still your possession,
Your ball,
right? But if
okay.
you just throw it out of bounds, right, or let's say I check it out of your stick and it rolls out, it's now our ball because it's a turnover
I
possession.
see. I see. So it just depends on situationally what's going on.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Right, right,
Okay.
right. Because now there's
Um,
also a shot clock as well, which makes the game even faster.
that's cool though. I think that helps the pace of a game. Just like baseball, right? They added the pitching clock and stuff. So do you see are fights something that you see in lacrosse, or is it kind of or is it kind of a overall respect thing where it's like you're in this physical game to where obviously tensions are high, but people know that that's not something that's like out of respect for the game that you don't do.
Right, right. And kind of, I mean, nothing like hockey. Hockey, I mean, there's a fight every time you look away from the TV or you're looking at the screen. There's always something going on. But there's always going to be times where you see someone get physical or there's going to be a fight. I know actually, it was funny. Yesterday at a recruiting event, I saw this kid get blown up, right? Next thing you know, he's squaring up with no helmet on. And
Oh,
it just depends on where you are. And you can actually look this up. I'm pretty sure no. Either Yale or someone played Princeton last year in the playoffs or in the Ivy League playoffs, and they got into a huge scuffle on the sideline. Right, again,
right.
emotions get high, everyone's all like up and at them, and sometimes it's usually those big rivalries where you'll see a lot of blood being kind of spewed out, punches are
Yeah.
thrown, people are getting chain snatched. Right, I've seen that before. Again,
Yep.
it gets gritty, kind of in the trenches, but again, you're not really going to throw honestly any helmets off or gloves off
Right.
like hockey, but you'll have the occasional punches or a nice late hit, which will get a lot of shoving and pushing, kind of more like soccer a little bit. But again,
Yeah.
it happens. It does, just not as frequent.
I gotcha. So where do you think the best high school state is right now, with the best lacrosse being played? Like I'll ask my wrestling coaches what state has the best high school wrestling. So I'm gonna ask you just because I'd love to have other lacrosse coaches on here, and I'd love to have this debate kind of like between it, right? When you
Yeah, of
listen,
course.
there might be a guy who thinks Cali's better than Maryland or whatever, but where do you think the best high school lacrosse is right now in the country?
Honestly, I'm biased because I came from Jersey. I think we have the best lacrosse ever. North
Okay.
Jersey is like top tier. But I mean, right now, it's also tough because you have all of these great private schools like McDonough, right? They're out in Maryland. But again, they have guys from either the area or they'll get other kids from other states to
I
come
see.
there, or the Western Reserve Academy, which is out in, I believe, Ohio, right? But they get kids from Connecticut, right? Again,
I
it all
see.
depends. But I'd say public school or like private school in general, like Connecticut's really good, Maryland, really good. Even a lot of public schools like Manhasset in New York are fantastic. So I'd say this eastern little side by me is probably like the best. But again, people are blowing up over in California as well.
For sure. So I appreciate diving into that and giving us a little bit of a rundown about lacrosse and the purpose of it and how the sport is developed. So I want you to dive in, if you don't mind, a little bit about or maybe not dive in. It might not be something you have to dive into, but I know you mentioned earlier like you helped out with high school a little bit, right? And you were helping, and then you worked for your dad's company at some point in life. So when did you decide that coaching is what you wanted to do? Like, what was the moment that swayed you to go into coaching, and what was the purpose behind it? What when did you decide to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was late to it, once I graduated, I never really thought I'd go this route, you know, when I was working for my dad's company, just working in the warehouse. And I was like, man, I got to do something else. So then I got the job opportunity with Bridgeton Academy right before COVID hit. And they're a post grad up in Maine. And I was there for a little bit working under Coach Marshall. And that's where I just fell in love with it. I loved working with these kids and trying to get them a little better and get them stronger or whatever it may be, right? I loved working with them and showing how the potential they have, you know, like a lot of
Right.
times when I was going up, I didn't have all the right resources. You know, I had a lot of help, but again, I didn't have everything that I wish I had now. You know,
Right.
and so that's when I really fell in love with it. I was doing summer ball with younger kids that are, I think they were like the class of like 20, 35, whatever that is, right? However old they
Okay.
are, you know.
Yeah.
But again, I just loved working with all these guys and working on how to get better. What can I do? All these little life lessons, right? That kind of helps them grow into the player they want to become. And that's just when I fell in love with this, probably around 2018, 2019. If I had to be really specific.
Yeah, and that's kind of your timeline then. So is that kind of so that leads into the next question is how long have you been doing this, and then what was your timeline? So like, what school did you start at, and then how did you get to where you're at right now?
Yeah. So I started coaching like here and there for New Jersey Riot in high school and a little bit in college. So that was like around 2015 to like 2018, kind of on and off. Then right before COVID hit, I got a job up in Maine, like I was just telling you at Bridgeton
Mm-hmm.
Academy. So again, I've been coaching for, I'm not sure, honestly, maybe close to 6 or 8 years, I believe, but
Yeah, say about 8 years. Yeah,
right. So somewhere around
somewhere in
there.
there.
Yes, quick math, right? Quick math.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, started coaching and then COVID hit, right, which was unfortunate, but we still ended up getting a lot of our guys to great places. And so then once that hit, an opportunity popped up to be a grad assistant, actually where I'm working now. So I was
Mm,
here from 2020 to 2022 working as a grad assistant, again, kind of my first collegiate experience. And then also, again, like my master's at the same time. So it was
sure.
awesome. I got a little best of both worlds. And then I got a great job over at Oberlin College out in Ohio, running as the C and second assistant. That was, again, awesome. Right ahead, a huge team. And I got to do a lot of new things that I didn't get to do when I was a GA here.
Right.
And then last year, after I left Oberlin, I was in that weird hiring process where I was trying to find another job, but nothing was working out, right? So Albertus gave me a chance to kind of be a volunteer, but also work in admission. So then I was
Okay.
doing that all of last year. So again, I got to know the background of the school, right? The kind of behind the scenes stuff that goes on. And then this job opened up. I threw my hat in the ring, and next thing you know, I'm here. And so it's
Yeah.
been a hell of a journey, but I'm glad to be here because my fiance me and her live 15 minutes away from the school. My
Heck
family's back
yeah.
in Jersey and family and friends up in Mass. So I'm like right in between them. So, you know, I'm happy to be here and I'm planning on being here for the long haul.
Yeah. Best of both worlds for sure. So I know you're mentioning like uh, before COVID, right? And you're in high school, you enjoyed getting kids. I guess during COVID, you're still able to get kids to the next level. So like when it comes to recruiting for you, and I usually ask this question, what is it like recruiting lacrosse, right? Do you have a really big pool? Do you focus on like pipeline states? I mean, are you looking nationally? I mean, yeah, I mean, so kind of dive into your recruiting process a little bit maybe, and then like, where you're finding kids and what you're looking for when you're looking for them.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I am at a smaller school. So, again, I gotta have to be a little more niche, right? I got to reach out to certain high schools, certain things. So, I want to have a lot of pipelines from like Jersey, Connecticut, and Mass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of that New England tri state area. I would love to be just a hotbed for a lot of local kids, right? But it's going to take time to kind of get there because right now we're definitely had a rough history before I took over. But again, that's the beauty of it, right? I went to a school where we were kind of like lower in the conference, but we all bought in and then got to second and third in conference by like my
Mm,
junior and senior year, right? And that's what I want to build here. So I'm reaching out to anyone and everyone at the moment. Again, I just want to bring in like a big class and create my foundation because I got a young team right now. Actually, got like no seniors, so
oh wow.
I have all junior. Again, a very young team, so they're going to help me create this foundation. And we just got done with fall ball, so it's awesome. But again, back to your point, like I want a lot of kind of funnels through Jersey, Connecticut, Mass.
Yeah.
That's where I'm really going to go. And again, I try to embody being that your typical player's coach, you know, because I've been in their shoes, so I get how it goes. And that's
Right.
going to be my whole sell. And really, if they want to ride along this kind of building block, you could say, right? We're just kind of brick by brick right now. And so that's what I really try to do. Again, just try to look in that New England tri-state area, really.
Right. You sounds like you have a really good really good region, if you really would, you don't really have to search crazy far if you don't have to. But being a younger coach, I don't know when you I mean, I'm gonna assume you graduated in that 2018 range is kind of what you were saying. So you're a few years younger than me. But being a young coach, I notice, there's a lot of younger coaches stepping into head coaching roles of the college level, in today's world anyways. So what has it been like for you being kind of the new kid on the block, but also being a young coach on the block, kind of going from maybe really not a lot of college experience before this on the outside of playing, right? But I guess how has it transitioned for you going from just helping out in high school while in high school to now you're a full-time gig head coach at, 24, 25, 20, 25 years old right now, 26 years old.
Right. Listen, I wish I was still 26. I'm 28 years old, but
hold on. You're 28?
Yeah, I know. I got a baby face. I don't look like I'm 28. So I graduated college in 2018.
Okay, so you graduated college in 2018?
Yeah.
So you graduated
high school in 2014.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's fair. I graduated high school in 2013, and so I'm 29. So I got you. I was thinking that you were 28. 2018 was in high school. My fault. I misread that, and I misheard it. All right. So 28, 29. All right, we're good. Yeah. But yeah, you can take the 24, 25 comment though. There you go. You can take that one.
Will. Yeah, exactly. My dad always said, "Listen, you look young, but you're gonna appreciate when you're 40 or 50." Sure, that's great. But now I get ID'd everywhere I go all the time now. And it's like, I wish I had some type of facial,
I feel you. I feel that, man. Yeah. This isn't for any kids who are listening to it, but I can say that I was getting into PG-13 movies at like 10, and I stopped getting carded for the most part at like 19, which I didn't ask for anything like that, but I always for some reason looked older. So on the other side of it, I'm not looking forward to being 45, 50 because I probably look my age now with all the hair. But anyways, you keep the baby face and just assume that you're 24, 25, as I mentioned, being a young coach in the game. Tell me how that's transitioned for you.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, this place has been awesome. It's a lot of guys who work here have been here forever. They actually went here and then now are working here. So it's been a great transition. Everyone's welcomed me with open arms. So it's been a lot. And I think also my experiences of being here as a grad assistant, and then working out in Oberlin, which are two different schools, right? One's very it's just much bigger and in Ohio, right? So again, a different recruiting style, right? But we still look to get in guys from New Jersey, New York area, and like the Mass area. So again, it kind of correlates. And I've just always been a sponge with every job I've gone to, every recruiting event I've gone to, every I guess coaching summit or kind of, I don't know what you call them.
Convention type of.
Yes, exactly. And so we have all those. So again, I've just been a sponge, and again, just trying to understand how people go. And so learning as I've been going has really made this transition that much easier for me because I also knew some of the guys on the team, right? So they knew what I was trying to implement. So that also helped me as well. But again, it's been a smooth transition. And I can't complain, man. I'm loving every day, having come into work once, thinking like, oh, I got to do this again.
Yeah.
I wake up spry every morning, just like ready to attack the day.
Heck yeah. Yeah, that's the best mindset. When you love what you do, it's not a job, So I love that for sure. So was there ever a coach in your life who made an impact? And you can say more than one. Doesn't have to be, specific to one. But was there ever a coach/coaches who made an impact on your life? And if so, who was he or she, and why?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I had a few coaches. I had a coach in high school, and it's funny. This is going to make him sound terrible, but I was like a freshman in high school, and we were doing like a 3v2 drill, or maybe a 3v1 or 2v1 drill, where basically there was like three lines, right? And I was in the middle, and it's so basically a 2-against-1 on a ground ball. So we rolled it out. I did a nice move. I let it smacked out the way, so I didn't have to get checked. Scooped it up, threw it back to him. He chucked it all the way down the field. I was like, go get it. And I was like, why? He's like, I want you to run through the ground ball. Don't avoid your problem. Don't avoid this, right? Get hit, run through it, make the play. Don't do all that fancy crap. I was like, oh, okay. And like that just stayed with me forever. Like now, anytime there was a ground ball, 50-50 ground ball, I am a bruiser. I'm going in, throwing so many checks again, running through checks, right? So his name was Paul Schwerin. He was in high school, one of my main coaches, he was awesome again. It's funny to think about that story. And then my college coach, Tim Murphy, who's actually I coach against now in my conference,
Okay.
which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
But he was awesome. Me and him used to butt heads all the time. Like my freshman and sophomore year, we just butted heads. I was coming in this cocky freshman who played right away, right? And we just, again, we were just butting heads. But he, again, also made me realize there's more to everything, you know? Like, again, I was just sitting there trying to just be a jock, right? But he made me realize like there's just more to life than just lacrosse, right? Enjoy your college experience, get your good grades, all this, right? One thing he did, and that I implement here, right? If you miss more than a certain amount of classes, right, in one class, like you won't play,
Right.
right? And so that was again something where I had to wake up and not miss class, right? Again, it was funny. I had two missed classes and I got an academic warning like my sophomore year, like I missed three. Right. So I went in, I was like, no. I didn't miss three. I only missed two. And he's like, well, you shouldn't have missed any. And so he still sat me, didn't play. Right. And again, I learned my lesson. But again, he's taught me so many life lessons. And that's how I kind of try to coach now. And it's been awesome. I mean, I'm holding these guys accountable, right? Because that's
Yeah.
how it
Of
is in the real world, right? You can't just
course.
go in and just hand in late work. You can't come in, show up whenever you want. Right? You got to get in. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that because that was going to be a question I had, but it sounds like not only your college coach, but your high school coach, right, has taught you a lot of things about the sport itself, but how to kind of maybe mentally approach things, which kind of translates to life. So it sounds like you took some of those things not only for yourself, but now you're implementing those into your coaching philosophies till to this day, right? So what do you love about coaching, and what do you dislike about it? Is there anything that you dislike, or is it kind of just an overall? I know you said you love what you do, but is there anything that you found that you dislike about it?
Honestly, the only thing that I don't love is just traveling, you know, because
Okay.
again, growing up, I worked for my dad's company. We traveled everywhere. So I've been to almost every state. I've worked in Vietnam, Hong Kong, like I've worked all over. And again, it's just a lot of traveling. That's really the only aspect that stinks, but it's not like I'm traveling hours on end. You know, I'm going maybe 2 hours to a recruiting event in New York or Jersey, maybe 4 hours up in Maine or New Hampshire, whatever it may be. So it's not bad, but that's really the only thing that can stink. And I'm sure you can ask other college coaches like lacrosse where it's like that's the only thing that really sucks.
Lacrosse. Yeah, and it's interesting because which granted lacrosse, I will definitely ask that question. Every other sport I've talked to has been like the administration side of things. Like they don't like the paperwork, they don't like the, you know, uh, scheduling buses or hotels and some of the stuff that they have to
Oh
do.
man,
Right.
that's easy.
And I think that I think it really comes down to like how what like you said, I guess kind of what you find joy in, right? And that stuff, whether it's easy or for them or for not, it's interesting because you know traveling for me, I actually enjoy traveling as a coach because it's like we're gonna experience something new. We get to see different talent, things like that. Now that's on a high school level, but for you, right? You said that you're traveling to all these different places for recruiting or games or whatever. Are a lot of your games relatively local, or are you traveling, to the Midwest, to the South, to the West Coast for certain games in the year?
Yeah, no, we're staying only in that New England area. I mean, I'm trying to get some spring break trips going after a few years, or at least probably next year after some fundraising. We're trying to get like
Hmm.
a little 4 game tournament out in like Virginia Beach, but that's the farthest we'd ever go. And again, it's going against schools that are from upstate New York. One of those, my alma mater, and
Okay.
like another one that we're trying to finalize. But we're actually this most southern school in our division right now, so we're in the GNAC, and so we go all the way up to Maine to play a couple of games,
Okay.
Vermont, New Hampshire.
Right.
But then again, we'll play a few of these teams that are like in Western Mass, like right by
Mm,
Springfield, or in Hartford, Connecticut.
right. Okay.
Yeah, so it's nothing
Um,
too crazy.
so like when it comes to, and I'm gonna jump back to this just because it came to my mind, and it was. I'll be honest with you. Whenever I was in college, I don't even know if I want to use that term because I might be generalizing, but I felt like lacrosse players, granted, it might have been the pipeline, but they came from like Cali, right? So they're the Cali boys, right? They're pretty boys, in my opinion, at that time. Not saying now, but at that
Right,
time,
right,
right?
right.
And they all had like money. It seemed like, right? They were driving real nice cars and stuff. So like lacrosse as a whole, now, right? And you were in college and did that. Is lacrosse a pretty financially taxing sport to play from a young age, or is it, or can you do it without having like crazy financial backing from parents to do?
You can definitely do it without crazy financial backing, but it's definitely not a cheap sport. It's not as expensive as hockey, because
Mm,
every stick is, I don't even know how much money in sore pads, right? But again, it's definitely more, it can be costly, right? Especially summer ball, like that's where it's going to be a lot, right? Because you're spending this X amount of money to get your kids signed up for this tournament, right? All these club teams need this amount of money from you to travel with them and then sign your team up, right? So
right.
again, it can be a lot of money, but there's a lot of new programs now starting that are more cost effective, that are helping
I
the
see.
game grow, and again, giving more guys the opportunity that other guys don't have, right? Like I remember growing up, I didn't have any new stuff. I had all hand me downs from my cousin, right? And then once
Right.
I got bigger than him, I had to get new stuff. So again, it's just a great community. And again, we're trying to find new ways to, again, give people different ways to just play this sport, and just help them again, because this sport can take you to the collegiate level, right?
Hmm.
And it's great, just like other sports. It helps you kind of get to that next step, whether you want to play or not. But it's just a beautiful game, and it is becoming more cost effective, especially in different areas.
Right. And I know, like, where do you see lacrosse being at? Or so we'll start with this. How do you feel about lacrosse in 2024, 2025 on like a national scale when it comes to participation or just the sport as a whole? And then how do you feel about it in the next like 5 years to a decade? How do you feel like growth or regression? Like, how do you feel about the sport in that next, 5, 10 years as well?
Yeah, I mean, both great questions. I really don't know. I know like in the next 5 years, it's just going to grow that much more.
Hmm.
Just especially with all these new club teams, and there's so many schools starting new programs. Like Colby Sawyer is now starting a men's lacrosse program, right?
Right.
And again, that's another great opportunity for kids to go get a great education and play a sport that they love for the next 4 years.
Hmm.
So again, it's just going so fast. So I'm not even too sure, especially with all these NIL deals, right? People are now
Yep.
branding themselves. I really have no idea where this is going to go, but I know that the game is going to grow, which is great. And I see it more and more often. Like again, there's schools out in Idaho that are getting really big. They're more like MCLA club ball, but again, they're
Okay.
still getting big. And there's actually a club team, I think it's Texas, I believe their club lacrosse team has had talks of maybe becoming a real program, right? Again, it's
Right.
just crazy to see all these club teams now trying to become a real division, whether one, two, or three
Right.
collegiate team.
And like most of the sports in college have like international presence in some sort, right? Maybe not all, but basketball, soccer, or obviously I guess soccer is kind of an outlier. That's the world's biggest sport, but like wrestling's international, baseball's international, things like that. Do you think that lacrosse will ever get to that point, or do you think it's a pretty standardized thing to probably going to be more of a American/North American type of sport?
So it already has gone
Oh, has it?
international. Like,
Okay.
so Japan has a fantastic team.
Okay.
And like my mom's from Hiroshima, right? So I got a lot of love for them. And if it ever opens up to do like a tryout, I probably would try to get myself back in shape and go try it. But again, it's
Hell
awesome.
yeah.
Like Team Jamaica has a sick team, right? They have a kid that's
Really?
actually at, yeah, they have a kid right now at Providence. God, he's from, I think, Connecticut or the New England area, but his dad or his mom has like a Jamaican background, so he was able to play for them and played and had an absolute year for them. So
Wow.
again, international ball is awesome. And again, another fun fact, right? You would think hockey is Canada's international sport or their main sport. It's really lacrosse.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So again, that's their national sport. I mean, they played all the time. Box lacrosse is huge. I mean, it's taking over like
Wow.
everywhere internationally. It's actually getting really big.
Did not know that. That's crazy. I would assume, I mean, like I said, being naive to the sport, but have you ever watched Cool Runnings?
Now I don't even know what that
Never
is.
watched Cool Runnings? It was an old Disney movie about like the Jamaican bobsled team.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
I
that's
have
kind
seen
of
it.
what. Whenever you said Jamaican lacrosse team, that's what I was thinking
Right.
about for
That's where
whatever
you go.
reason. Yeah, I was like, oh man, thanks, coach. Yeah, Sanka's coming here to play lacrosse type of thing. That's cool though. Okay, yeah, so it is a much bigger sport than I guess I knew, and that's great that it is on that growth level. So I guess when it comes to like, this will be my final recruiting question. I think.
Play by ear.
Yeah, we'll play it by ear. Because after this, I really want to dive into like the philosophies of you as a coach. So I would rather talk about that a little bit more than recruiting. But are you going after? So you're a 4-year school, right? But there are some 2-year schools that have lacrosse, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So are you looking for kids that are able to that are in junior college that want to play at a 4-year school? Are you looking into those resources as well, or are you kind of focusing on your high school senior that you can develop over that 4 or 5-year span? I guess with redshirt 5-year span.
So I'm more looking for that high school route or like the post grad route, like the PG year. That's more I'm looking at. But again, I got nothing against people going JUCO and coming in with 2 years left to play.
Right.
But again, I just never gone that route.
Right. And is that something that when it comes to like getting these kids out? I know you mentioned earlier like you're reaching out to coaches. Do you see that coaches are doing their due diligence in educating kids about like D1, D2, D3, or are you kind of having to face that? Are you having to kind of break that barrier down that you might see like, oh, well, it's D1 or bust or whatever, when realistically, or whatever the case is, right? Are you having to overcome that in some of your recruiting visits or conversations?
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have that, I think, in every sport, but I do think it's changing a little bit towards that, where it's like, all right, it's either D1 or like I'm not playing, right? But again, I'm trying to change that narrative. And I'm sure a lot of coaches are trying to change that narrative as well, especially in the high school level. Like, would you rather sit either at a D1 school, like on the bench all 4 years, or D2 school, or have the chance to play at a D3 or D2,
Right.
And so it's nice to see a lot of guys are changing their way, right? Especially when COVID hit, man, a lot of schools changed their route and how like all these kids are going now. Cause again, they're like, oh, COVID hit. I now want to stay closer to home and just worry about academics, So that was also a big, big hit for the game. But it's funny. I think it is churning the right way. I think a lot of guys are now just like, I want a chance to play and again get a great education out of it at the same time.
I think that, and I mentioned this to a coach who's actually a wrestling coach over in New Jersey at Stevens Institute of Technology.
Oh yeah,
over there.
They're a great lacrosse program.
Oh, do they? Okay. Yeah. So like I talked to them. Yeah, they have a good field hockey team too. I think they just made it to the championship game for the thing. Yeah, I think so. If I'm thinking right, Instagram showed me that. But anyways, yeah, like he was saying the same thing. Like if a high school coach or club coach or whomever can do their due diligence to like, and I mentioned this to him, like as a high school coach, I've sent out a lot of kids to the next, or like sent out, I guess, inquiries. I've reached out to college coaches, let them know I have an athlete, right? I think they could compete at your level, whatever. And then obviously it's not my job, but I send it to them. And, it's because I've done my due diligence of like educating the kids, but like, hey, same thing you said, do you want to sit or do you want to play? And I think that even though social media is different now than even when we were in school, with way more exposure to something, if you really want to look at lacrosse, go look at TikTok or YouTube and you're going to find all the lacrosse you want. Versus back then, you might not have saw it as much, right? But as a coach, to educate these guys and girls to let them know what the heck's going on and what the opportunities are, really helps. I would assume the college coach to be like, it's one less thing they have to worry about necessarily of having to overcome something, because if I talk to that kid about something and already broke down relative, right? I don't know it all, but broke it down on a relative term for a high school kid to where like they're still interested in a D3 who reached out, or a D2 or NAI or JUCO or whatever, right? That might be one less thing that the college coach has to fight, if you would, and to get them to understand. So I think a lot of it's just, it is developing a little bit different, right? I mean, I see some kids who can go, like there's a kid who was a 4-time state champion in wrestling in Arizona. I thought he probably could have went D1. Maybe not. I don't know about anywhere, but he could have went D1, right? Mid-major. Might have been, low, maybe somewhere in the Big Ten. And he decided to go to Grandview, and Grandview is an NAI school. Granted, they've won like 12 championships in the last 13 years, but he went there because he wanted the opportunity to go compete versus potentially sit, right? And so that, I think, is starting to develop in a much higher sense. So I could appreciate what you mentioned there.
Yeah.
So now we get to the fun part. We get to talk about the coaching philosophies a little bit, and kind of the part that, I know you mentioned that you were listening to some of the other episodes. Hopefully you got to this part. If you didn't, go finish it, because this is the fun part. This is where hopefully coaches stick around to listen to, but it's all about your philosophy and stuff. So the first question I always like to ask is, so how do you build a successful culture on the level of buy-in or mindset?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I got lucky with these guys because, again, I knew most of them coming in, but they also knew what I was about when I was a volunteer. So I had a meeting with them in the beginning of the year, and I also met with a few of them like on the side before I started. Like, what are you expecting? What do you want? What do you want to gain from this year, right? And again, I just get down to a personal level where, again, I'll be your friend until we get on the field, because then when we get on the field, right? Now we got to change hats, right? I'm now the coach. You got to understand what I'm saying, right? And they have
Right.
bought in. Like, I guess in past, like, right, they had someone who either gave them like false threats or anything like that, right? But
Mm-hmm.
again, I hold these guys accountable, and that's really been great because, again, I've heard great report, great feedback from the parents and the players how week 1 felt like week 4. Like they're
Yeah.
really bought in. And right now we're doing end of fall meetings. And again, it's just been, again, a nice little, I guess, pat on my back, you could say.
Yep.
Right. But again, they're really buying into what we're trying to do. So again, I just really want to get down on a personal level with them, tell them how I see this year going and being really real with them. Right. I told them in the beginning, like, I don't know how many ones we'll get this year, but I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about building this foundation, building this culture to really buy in and really take us to the next level.
Right. Yeah, it starts with that in order for you to see success on the field, right? Now, do you call it a field? Is that what
Oh
you
yeah.
call it? Okay. I know, like,
Yep.
soccer, it's called a pitch. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm just making sure I'm politically correct here with your field that you're
You're
playing
all
on.
good. You're
Okay.
all good. You're all
So
good.
then that leads to the next question. Really, is, how do you build and like you said, right? Like, relatively new to this on head coaching terms of this level and stuff. So this may be what you're planning on doing, but in general, you might have been a part of some programs like this. But how do you build a successful program on the level of wins and longevity? And then how do you sustain that?
Right. Again, that's a great question, and hopefully I have a decent answer. I think coaches, when they're in my role, who have been there for a little bit, have a better answer. But I think I got to start, especially right now with this year. I think it just comes down to who the guys are who are recruiting, right, and who really wants to buy into what I'm trying to build here. I think if these guys really want to be with me and kind of build it block by block, or sorry, brick by brick, it's going to pan out. So that's a tough question. That's definitely a hard question for me to answer.
Yeah.
But I think that especially after this year, it's going to help me kind of create that longevity with all the classes and the recruiting classes I'm trying to bring in.
Well, I think next time we get you on, maybe you'll have a better answer for it, because maybe you'll come back on like after season or something, maybe a year or two into it, and you
That'd
might
be
have a little
awesome.
bit of a better one. Yeah, no, I would love to. Like I said, I usually say it's at the end, but I think that you've given some really good gems, especially as a new coach, to it all. And on the second half, I'd love to dive in truly philosophies, right? Like, how do you get kids to peak?
Right.
Dive deeper into like your recruiting, things like that. But yeah, whenever that time comes, you'll be I'll definitely gonna send you a message, and we're definitely gonna make it happen. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully I have some better facial hair, so I don't get confused for 25.
Yeah, maybe you'll be 30 next time we see you, for
There
sure.
you go. There you go.
So then, same. This might be one of those things that might be difficult to answer too. But you've been in a few different roles, so and you've seen probably some coaches in and out, whether you were with them or whatever. But how do you have any tips or advice for new coaches that are new to coaching in general, or struggling coaches who might be struggling with? I mean, I don't mean to go into specifics, but they could be struggling with anything, right? All of us coaches know at some point in coaching, we're going to struggle with something, right? Collegiately might be different than high school, but in general, we might struggle. So what kind of advice do you have for those coaches who are either new or might be struggling?
So for the guys that are new that need advice, I mean, this is what I did. I'd just be a sponge. anytime someone has something good to say, or if you like how they're portraying this or how they're explaining something, right, write it down, make a memo,
Mm.
just be a sponge, right? That's what helped me get here. I've had so many coaches that have coached me and then that I've worked with, right? And I understand now how I want to be, right? I've seen coaches that have freaked out, right? Or maybe just try to like embarrass someone, right? I don't want to do that. That's what I don't
Yeah.
want to do. Right. Again, it's just how you go about it and how you're learning from these guys. You learn from their mistakes, and then you can also learn from your mistakes. So that's what I'd have for advice. And for anybody that's struggling, honestly, just try new routes. Right. If you're struggling and you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to keep struggling. Right.
Yep.
If you're trying to change it for the better, try something new. Whether it's you do 10 calls one day, maybe do 20. Or you've been recruiting all in one spot, maybe go 20 miles east of them, or 20 miles, or maybe even more than that, right? Just
Right.
change it up, try something new. You like, listen, the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work out, but at least you tried, you know?
Yep. 100%. Do you it sounds like you're a big character guy, right? Just like talking to you, it's like
Definitely
like
am.
like personality wise, I can tell you're a big character guy. Now this is the last recruiting question, and might even be like coaching staff wise. Obviously you get to build kind of who you want around you on your coaching staff, but also who you want in your locker room. Is character pretty high on your priority list when it comes to either recruiting or staffing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like when I went through this whole kind of hiring process with one of my new like GAs, right?
Mm,
If I can't have a conversation with you, I don't know if it's going to work out, right? But again, I'm also not going to say no to you, right? So I'll talk to him on the phone, met him in person. Again, just trying to get him out of his comfort zone. And so that's something I do. But again, character is awesome for me. Like I want this team to be able to just come into my office and shoot the shit with me, right? I want
yep.
them. Oh, sorry,
No,
excuse my
you're good.
French. I
No, you're
apologize for
good.
that.
I
Um,
think it's funny because like, uh, you know, I try to keep it professional, right? And I know coaches do, but it's like we all know we all know how we talk, right? So you don't have to apologize. It's all right. I find it more genuine too if you like actually if that's how you talk, then talk how you talk. I mean
right, right, right.
I'm not in a polo. We're not on Channel 4 News. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Like
right, right. But
so
still, I don't know the viewers, so again, I'll try to keep it as PG as
I
possible. But
got
on
you.
the field, right, it's definitely a different beast.
Right.
I'm out here, and again, once I get my point across, they understand. But if they're not listening, right, or let's say we're starting slow, right, I'm gonna get loud, I'm gonna get vocal, and we're gonna do sidelines again, something we used to do all the time, which sucks. But again, it wakes you up like, oh man, I don't want to do sprints. Let me focus up, let me dial it in, and really get through practice, so we don't have to waste that extra time.
Right.
Um, but yeah, again, character's huge. Like I'm a personal guy. I could talk to a wall, honestly. And even when I go to recruiting events, I tell
Fair.
people, right? I tell the families and everything, right? If we can get along, right, we're gonna be fine. Because again, it's not just about the kid, right? It's about the
Yep.
parents. Like again, they're gonna hand me off their kid, right, for the next 4 years. I'm gonna do my best to kind of show them the ropes of the real world. But again, get some life lessons. So that's how I kind of go about it, right? So yeah, I'm definitely a big character guy, and I think my team should be full of characters, whether they're like that first or not. Again, I just want guys that are going to come in, hang out, want to learn, want to get better. That's what I'm really trying to
Right.
go for.
Yeah. And do you see do you see like when it comes to lacrosse, is it a pretty big like I told you at the beginning, right? Like whenever I was at my school, I saw a lot of those guys come in from wherever they came in from, and maybe it's because where I'm from, we don't have like I'm not from California, right? So like their vibe is different than like New York. New York is a completely different vibe than Boston, right? Like that's accurate. So like do you feel like lacrosse has like type of and this isn't I'm just this is more of a personal thing. We can edit this out if we need to. But like do you feel like lacrosse has a ego to it that might be different than other sports or like a different mindset, different character than like maybe a football guy or a baseball guy or like even like a hockey guy?
Yeah, honestly, probably. I mean, again, and it's funny, I feel like I keep saying this, right? Every sport does have their own ego. I mean, I don't think I've ever had one. I'm sure people will tell you otherwise,
Yeah.
that I do. But it's funny, like I have one buddy who he played football and lacrosse in college with us. So during the
Okay.
football season, we'd be like, yo, what's up? He'd be like, nah, don't talk to me. Right. And then
Yeah.
in springtime, when he's on our team, he's like our best buddy. It's just funny how that works. Like some guys do. And we definitely had, like, you can look this up later. It was called like Conbro Chill,
Okay.
or like the ultimate lax bro. Right. It was like the epitome of like a lax dude. Like you
That's
wore
fun.
like your bowed shoes, right? You had your long, flowy
Yeah.
hair, right? I never was blessed with that, right? Like I got the black hair here,
Yeah.
Again, my mom's from Japan, right? I wasn't like your typical lax guy, so I never really fit that criteria.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I don't think I really had that ego. But again, you'll always have like your typical lax junkie that'll come
Yeah.
in and be like your typical lax bro.
Yeah, typical lax bro. It's almost like a frat guy, or almost like Blue Mountain
Right,
State, like
right. Yeah,
Thad from Blue Mountain State type of thing.
yes,
You know what I'm saying?
exactly. Great comparison.
Yeah, and it's and I always feel bad because like I don't like putting, like I hate putting, I don't even know what you want to say, like objectifying, I guess, or like opinionating or whatever you want to call it, somebody. But like that's kind of like the image I get from it, like some of those videos or whatever. It was like the Thad from Blue Mountain. It's like that dude. It's all about this, all about parties when the off season's here, right? Whatever. But like, and Joe, I just had to ask that question, so maybe I won't edit that part out because it might be.
No,
I
leave
thought that was a
that
pretty damn
in.
good comparison.
It is. I
You know?
think it is. It is, especially to how it was like come like when we were growing up, right? That's how it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
You had all your pretty boys that were able to afford the game, right? But again, that's just how it was back in the day.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like obviously, there was every sport had that too, right? I mean,
So
so
yes.
it's just an image of what you see from one sport to another. But that does lead to the final question that I have at least written down. It's the probably the most important question, and it's the name of the podcast is what's your why? Why do you do this?
I do it for the love of the sport, and again, just being a resource for my guys. Like I really embody like the players coach because I've been there. I've been in their shoes, I've been through the trenches, so I know what it means, and that's what I'm trying to do. I want these guys to use me as a resource 10 to 15 years down the line, right?
Mhm.
I want them to use me as a resource for internships, whatever it may be, right? I want to be there for them, right? Because a lot of my guys, or not a lot, but a few of my guys, right, have like a different background, right, than your typical lacrosse guy. And so again, they need someone there, and it's been great. Like I had a few guys this year come out of their shell because they got the confidence that they need because I
Mhm.
backed them up, right? Again, I want to be that resource for them, that whether they had it or not, or what, maybe they found it within me when they already had something, right? Again, I'm just trying to be that player's coach, right? I want them to
Yeah.
come to me when things are either rough or things are great. I want to be there for them again down the line. I'm not just going to be here for 4 years and then I
Yeah.
won't talk to you again, right? I want that longevity. I want to build that kind of bond with these guys, right? And then just be with them and see where their life takes them. That's my whole aspect of this. This is why I do it. I want to see them grow from this little 18-year-old kid,
Yeah.
17-year-old
Yeah.
kid to this stud now in the real world, whether they're making a lot of money or doing something that doesn't make a lot of money, whatever it may be, right? It's not
Yeah.
even about that. It's what makes you happy, right? And
Right.
that's what I want to do. That's why I do this. I want to work with, again, all these younger kids, right, in these showcases, right, show them that there's more to this, right? Sure, it's a great sport, but again, you got to do what you got to do to get to where you want to be, right? Because again, as much as I'm putting in the work now, I'm sure there's a coach out there putting in more work, right? And
Right.
that's why he's at that level, right? Again, it's just, I don't know, I might be going on a tangent a little bit,
No, you're
but
good.
this is like my why. I want to
Yeah.
be there for them. I want them to have a resource, and again, I want them to enjoy the sport that they love.
Yeah. And I love that, I love your why. And to kind of double back on what you just said, like, dude, trust me, I love whenever we go on tangents. It makes the episode more personalized for who you are as a
Right.
person, you know what I'm saying? And that kind of goes to, like you just said about like being a player's coach. I think that, and I could probably talk to it on another level, but I will just keep it at this one, is being that player's coach, or maybe even being younger. We almost can relate to the kids a little bit better, maybe, than like maybe an older coach with whether social media or just the time and age, right? Like we can make a SpongeBob reference and they probably understand it.
Right.
So it's almost like, having those type of that age gap that it's not so far almost allows you to be able to be that person, almost like an older, maybe say older brother, because you're still 10 years older, right? 6, 7, 10 years older, but you just can relate to them better. You kind of can get in their minds a little bit better, which then helps maybe with,
Absolutely.
like you said, the culture side of things, or I guess, yeah, really the culture side of things to help build that future. Like, oh no, coach is cool. He knows when to flip the switch from being a buddy, being like, oh, we can talk, we can make jokes, right? We're on our trip, to like, all right, it's go time. We're laced up. We gotta get our stuff together, type of thing, because
Yeah, absolutely.
we can relate to him a little bit better, which might just be me thinking because I'm young. That's what I do. But I think
We're
that's
still young
I think
in
that's
heart.
yeah, no, it is. I always wear a hat in these, just so you know. There's a reason behind it. I'm 28. Oh yeah, 29. My bad. I'm 29, but my hairline's looking 47. So
That's all
yeah.
right.
My heart's young though. That's all that matters, right?
Right. Listen, my buddy who's bald, and again, I'm not saying you're
That's a
bald, right? I can see
crazy
you still got
that yeah. I
that
mean, I
is
got
crazy.
hair. It's just going back.
No, you're
That's a
good.
crazy.
You're good.
Yeah, that's a
So my
crazy intro
buddy,
to a friend introduction though.
I
My
that
friend who's
is
bald.
because funny story, right? Again, we got real close, but again, he was bald, and I saw him this weekend, right? But he always told me like, listen, God, I'm not like a religious man, but he was like, God only made a few perfect heads, right? And all the ones that are perfect are the ones that have no hair. And he said that all
Look
the
at
time. So
that.
look at that. Look at
Hey,
that. Come on.
I mean, I can
There's always a
respect the
silver
hell.
lining somewhere.
I like that, staying positive. The thing is, though, is I'm scared if I do cut my hair off, which people who are listening to this, who know me personally, who've seen my head in person, I make jokes about it, but I'm worried that it's gonna look like a bowling ball because it's a dome piece, bro. Like, it's a dome piece. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking
Is
at,
it?
I feel like I race dirt track cars, right? I race cars and stuff, and growing up riding motorcycles and stuff. I always had like a 2X, 3X helmet.
Right.
Granted, I had dreads, which 3X was for the dreads, but like right now I'm wearing a 2X helmet. I just got a dome, so I'm worried that like if I go bald, I'm just gonna look like a giant, like lighter shade milk dud, and I'm not ready for that. I'm just not ready
The
for that
milk
one.
dud is crazy.
Like a
That is
caramel milk
such a
dud,
funny
bro.
comparison.
I'm just not ready for it. But when that time comes, it's all about confidence, right? That's what we talk about.
Absolutely.
All about
Absolutely.
confidence, baby.
Right. And a little fun fact, I actually had dreads my junior year of
Oh, look at
college.
that.
Oh
Hell
yeah.
yeah.
So I love to hear that again. It looked sick coming out of my helmet.
Oh, yeah, that's actually why me and my friend, we when we were in high school, going into junior year, he was like, I don't even know what the bet was. It was like, let's just grow our hair out for senior year for football. And he's like, I'll grow a mullet. And I was like, if you grow a mullet, I'll get dreads. And then we just
There you go.
we actually kept the dreads throughout college, throughout, wrestling, and I transitioned into football. He played football the whole time, and, we kept it that entire time, and we didn't cut him till, I think I cut mine in like 2018 or 2019, and I think he cut his around that same time. So we had him for 6 years together. So
Oh wow.
I'll be honest with you though, for my thumbnails of these episodes, I usually I might just, we usually find I usually use like the bio that your school uses. I may go back and try to find some collegiate, like your collegiate bio, just for that one, and keep that one on that one, bro. I might have to.
You got it. You got it. You can do it.
That'd be a sick one, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially if it was like a in your athletic gear, bro. That'd be a nasty thumbnail right there.
It was sweet. It was funny. So in lacrosse, right, there's this thing called like the all flow team. It's not like a real thing, but basically it was like if you can look it up, and you have some guys who had the funniest roster photos. And so like that year, me and all my buddies were trying to do something crazy. Like my buddy had a crazy mullet, and they did like the Yager beard, or my other buddy had like this weird like little cornrows hair. Right. Again, we just always did something funny like that. A lot of men's lacrosse photos will be like that.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'll have to go look that up and everything.
Yeah, you can.
I will. But Coach, I really appreciate you jumping on today. It was a really, really good episode, and I know we already kind of talked about it earlier, but I'd love to have you back on here sometime in the future for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm still honored to be your first lacrosse coach. So this has been a blast. I've never done anything like this. This is awesome.
Yeah, man, I'm glad that I could be the first time for you too, and something like this. And if you guys are still watching this episode on YouTube, make sure you guys HTB hit that bell, like, subscribe, all the 9 yards. If you guys are on an audio listener, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, PocketCasts, all that stuff, make sure you guys leave a review, leave a star rating, whatever you say, or let us know what you have to say. And whatever you say it with your chest, because we want to hear it. With that being said, we'll see you guys next time. Peace.